The Russian Olympic Committee is suspended with immediate effect. The report clearly lays out an unprecedented attack on the integrity of the Olympic Games and sports.
Well, this is a blow for one of the world's most successful Olympic countries, and it's largely because of what happened here, Sochi, in 2014, where the IOC says Russian officials engaged in widespread, systematic doping, and then tampered with test samples to hide it. The impact was significant. The IOC Disciplinary Commission report says the doping scheme caused exceptional damage to the integrity of the IOC and the Olympic Games. Of course, Russian authorities denying much of this. There are threats of a boycott and accusations of political motivations. Chris Brown has the reaction from Moscow.
On Russian TV tonight, athletes were bawling their eyes out. Everyone is talking about letting clean athletes go. So what does that mean? We're the dirty ones? Wailed biathlon competitor Yana Romanova. You're not dirty, assured the presenter. He might have been trying to comfort an entire country. There will be no Russian colors, no anthem, no Team Russia at the Pyeongchang Olympics in February. I think it's a political decision by the world, said this man in Moscow. This decision has nothing to do with sport.
Up Russia!
Still, the IOC said it wanted to give Russia a path forward. So, clean Russian athletes who haven't already been banned may be allowed to compete under an Olympic flag. The head of Russia's Olympic Committee said if there aren't any more doping offenses involving Russians, Russia can earn its way back into future competitions. Still, the big question now is, under these terms, is it still worth going? To go under a neutral flag is a disgrace for our country, said politician Valery Gazayev. First, the economic sanctions, now they do it to our sports, complained Russian Senator Igor Morozov. At the heart of Russian anger is that most here don't think their government had anything to do with Olympic cheating, or believe much else about the IOC's report. Tonight, one TV show even got a world champion arm wrestler on to see if he could open the caps of infamous urine bottles that were allegedly tampered with to make clean. No luck. So, Russians will have a week to mull it over. Then a special athletes committee will decide whether they will accept the IOC's terms and send athletes to compete in South Korea. Chris Brown, CBC News, Moscow.
To get to this point took years of accusations and investigations. Revelations of corruption at the highest levels of international sport and whistleblowers were crucial. Like Olympic runner Yulia Stepanova and her husband Vitaly, who worked for Russia's anti-doping agency.
We are trying to fight it for the right reasons.
They told international authorities about Russia's methods, how widespread the cheating was. Stepanova was branded a traitor, a Judas, in the words of Vladimir Putin's spokesman. There have been threats against their lives, and they've been in hiding. But Adrian has spoken to them a number of times. Despite the risks the athletes took, because of her doping violations, Stepanova has been barred from competing. For speaking out, she and her husband have paid a heavy price. Now that Russia is facing consequences, we reached Vitaly Stepanova for his thoughts.
I'm glad that the IOC heard us, believed other whistleblowers, and it's not a vindication, but I believe it's a good sign for anti-doping movement and for clean athletes. I guess mainly it's still a sad day that all of this was happening in my home country, and there was absolutely no system in place to prevent that. So this is the sad part, but the good part is that the truth came out, and hopefully now the system in Russia can be changed.
It's not just the whistleblowers sharing their thoughts on all of this today. Susan Ormiston spoke to some Canadian athletes who have been affected by past Russian cheating. As she tells us, while they do feel vindicated, they're not vengeful.
Remember this moment at the Sochi Olympics? A top Russian Olympian, hobbled by a busted ski, just tries to keep going. Suddenly, the Canadian ski coach comes to his rescue with a new ski. Justin Wadsworth was that guy, a true sportsman who has waited decades for today's doping sanctions.
The IOC has just been dropping the ball, in my opinion, and same with the IFs, for example, the FIS in skiing. So I really feel like everyone needs to come clean, and this is a good opportunity for everyone just to admit their wrongs and admit they haven't done enough in the past.
Wadsworth was himself an Olympic skier, and
there comes Becky Scott.
He's married to Becky Scott, who competed against Russians 15 years ago at the Salt Lake City Olympics. Scott took bronze behind Russia's gold and silver.
This is one for the clean athletes.
But both Russian skiers were ultimately stripped of their medals because of doping, and Scott was finally awarded the gold. For both of them, allowing clean Russian athletes to go to Pyeongchang under a neutral banner is fair.
This should be a message to the Russian athletes to fight back and make their system answer to them about why they've had systematic doping in the past.
Are you puffing the biceps out?
Sam Edney and Canada's luge relay team took fourth in Sochi. If the Russian relay team who won silver doesn't qualify for these games, Canada could benefit.
It's restored faith in myself with the system, and I think it will restore the faith in a lot of athletes and as well as the competitors, the people that love watching the Olympics.
Athletes and coaches have been waiting for years for the IOC to own up to the scope of cheating. Now it has to make good on screening Russian athletes for Pyeongchang.
It was very frustrating and I think disappointing for a lot of us as athletes to have to know that going to the starting line that the competition, the playing field just wasn't level.
Coming down the hill, we see Becky in third place. It's Chapelova in the lead, followed by
Susan Ormiston, CBC News.